You almost did not watch this today. Something tried to distract you. Something tried to keep you busy, keep you scrolling, keep you moving past this without stopping. And yet here you are, because no matter what tried to pull you away, something stronger pulled you closer. That something is not coincidence. That something is not fate. That something is the hand of God, and it has been steering you toward this moment with a precision and a purpose that should stop you completely in your tracks. So stop, right now. Take a breath, because what is about to be spoken over your life in the next few minutes was not written for the masses. It was not prepared for the crowd. It was prepared for you, specifically, intentionally, lovingly, by a Savior who sees every hidden corner of your story and still calls you chosen. You need to understand something before anything else is said. Jesus is not disappointed in you today. He is not standing at a distance with folded arms and a furrowed brow, waiting for you to get it right. He is not replaying your failures or cataloging your shortcomings or measuring the gap between who you are and who He called you to be. No, today, in this moment, with full knowledge of everything you have been through and everything you have done and everything that has been done to you, Jesus looks at you and says something that might be the most unexpected thing you have ever heard Him say. He looks at you and says, "I am so proud of you." Let that land. Let it move past your intellect and settle somewhere deeper, somewhere honest. Because there is a part of you that has been waiting a very long time to hear those words. Not from a parent who was too busy or too broken to say them. Not from a partner who took you for granted, or a friend who never truly saw you. Not from a world that only celebrates achievement and performance and outward success. But from the one who made you, the one who knows you completely, the one whose opinion is the only opinion that carries eternal weight. He is proud of you today, right now, as you are. This might be difficult to receive. That is not an accident either. The enemy of your soul has spent years constructing a case against your worthiness. He has used your past mistakes as exhibits of evidence. He has used the words spoken over you by careless voices as testimony. He has used your own internal narrative, that quiet, relentless inner critic, as his most effective weapon against the truth of who God says you are. And the verdict he has been trying to get you to accept is that you are not enough, that you have gone too far, that you have missed too much, that the window of divine favor has closed and you are on the outside looking in. But God called an objection, and heaven upheld it. Because the truth, the real truth, the eternal truth spoken from the throne of grace, is that you are not on the outside. You never were. You were placed here, in this time, in this body, in this story, with all of its complexity and contradiction and beauty and pain, because God had something in mind that only you could carry. There is an assignment on your life that no one else was equipped to fulfill. There is a grace on your life that was custom designed for the terrain you have been walking through. And there is a pride in the heart of Jesus today that is not contingent on your perfection, but is rooted in something far more powerful, which is His own faithfulness working through your willingness. You have not been perfect. He never asked you to be. What He asked was for you to keep coming back. And you have. Even when coming back felt like crawling. Even when your faith was the size of something you could barely see. Even when you were not sure you believed anymore, some part of you kept reaching, kept whispering His name in the dark, kept showing up. And He noticed every single time. Think about the weight of that. The God of the universe, the one who spoke galaxies into existence and breathed life into dust and holds all of creation together by the word of His power, He noticed you. He noticed the night you cried without knowing why. He noticed the prayer you prayed when you were too tired to even form proper words. He noticed the moment you chose not to give up when everything in your natural mind told you to walk away. He noticed, and it mattered. This is the message being delivered to you today, not because you earned it, not because you have arrived, but because He chose this moment to look at you with the fullness of divine love and say, I see you. I know what you have carried. I know what it cost you, and I am proud of you. Comment 999 right now if you receive that word. Let that number be your declaration that you are standing in agreement with what heaven is saying about your life today. Let it be your yes to the voice that called you before the foundation of the world and has never stopped calling since. Because, beloved, you are not here by accident. You are here because God is not finished with His story in you. And what He is about to say next will begin to peel back every lie that has kept you from walking in the fullness of what He prepared for you before time began. There is something remarkable about the fact that He knew you before you knew yourself. Before you had a name, before you had a face, before you had a single memory or a single scar or a single moment of laughter or grief, He knew you. Not in the way that someone knows a stranger from a distance, not in the way that someone reads a file or reviews a record, but in the way that only a creator can know what he has made with his own hands and breathed into with his own breath. He knew the sound of your laugh before your lungs ever drew air. He knew the shape of your sorrow before the world ever gave you a reason to grieve. He knew the particular texture of your courage, the specific frequency of your faith, the exact combination of gifts and tenderness and fire that would make you, undeniably and irreversibly, you. And knowing all of that, He chose you anyway. No, not anyway. He chose you because of it. This is where religion often gets it wrong. Religion tells you that God chose you despite your weakness, as though your weakness were a flaw He had to overlook, a blemish He decided to tolerate in exchange for your service. But the heart of Jesus does not operate from tolerance. It operates from love, and love does not merely endure what it sees. Love chooses what it sees, fully and freely, and without reservation. So when Jesus looked at everything you would be, everything you would face, every valley you would walk through, and every mountain you would struggle to climb, He did not hesitate. He said, that one, that soul, with that story, in that season, that one is mine. You were not a backup plan. You were not selected because the first candidate fell through. There was no committee in heaven that debated your worthiness and landed on a reluctant yes. The yes that was spoken over your life was immediate, absolute, and eternal. It was spoken before the foundations of the earth were laid, and it has not wavered for a single second since. Not through your worst days. Not through your longest seasons of silence, not through the moments when you turned your face away from Him and tried to find meaning in places that could never satisfy the depth of what you were created for. He saw you in those moments too, and He did not love you less. There is a passage that has echoed through the hearts of the broken and the searching for generations, and it declares with breathtaking clarity that God demonstrated His own love for us in that while we were still lost, while we were still wandering, while we were still far from the fullness of who He made us to be, Christ came. He did not wait for you to clean yourself up before He came for you. He came for you in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the confusion, in the middle of the season when you were the least sure of yourself and the most vulnerable to the lies of the enemy. He came then. He came for that version of you, which means there has never been a version of you that He did not come for. There has never been a chapter of your story that disqualified you from His pursuit. There has never been a prayer you prayed that He turned away from, even if the answer took longer than you could understand. even if the silence felt like abandonment, when it was actually preparation. And this is where it becomes deeply personal, because the reason Jesus is so proud of you today is not simply that you exist. It is that he watched you live. He watched you navigate a world that does not understand you. He watched you carry the weight of a calling that was bigger than what anyone around you could see. He watched you try to explain something deep inside you that you did not even have words for yet. That restlessness, that longing, that sense that you were made for something more, that hunger for meaning that could not be filled by anything the world offered. He watched you search. He watched you question. He watched you wrestle, and he never once pulled away. He leaned in. Because the souls that wrestle with God are not the ones he is displeased with. They are the ones he is most deeply engaged with. Think of Jacob, who wrestled through the night and walked away both wounded and blessed, who came out of that encounter with a limp and a new name. The limp was not punishment. The limp was evidence. Evidence that something real had happened, that the encounter was genuine, that Jacob had not merely heard about God, but had actually grappled with him and survived and been forever changed by the experience. Your wrestling is your evidence. Your struggle is your testimony. Your refusal to let go, even when holding on cost you everything, is exactly what makes Jesus look at you today and say, "I am proud of you." You need to sit with that for a moment. You need to let the magnitude of it break through whatever wall of unworthiness the enemy has built around your heart. Because Jesus does not say those words lightly. He does not offer empty encouragement or hollow affirmation. When he says he is proud of you, it is because he has seen the full weight of what you have carried and the full faithfulness of how you have carried it. And his heart responds with something that can only be described as divine. Pride in the child he made and the journey that child has walked with him. Before we go any further, there is something we want to say from the heart of this channel, and we want to say it gently, because it comes from a place of genuine gratitude. If these messages have met you in moments when you needed them, if these words have found you in the quiet and spoken something your soul was thirsting to hear, then you already know the value of what is being built here. This is a space created for people like you, for the ones who are searching for more than surface level faith, for the ones who need to hear that they are seen and loved and chosen by a God who does not give up. If you feel moved to like this video, we would love that, because every like helps this message reach more people who are quietly searching for exactly what you just heard. And if something here has resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear these words today. Your share might be the very thing that finds someone at their lowest moment and reminds them that they are not forgotten. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, we warmly invite you to do that now, so that every new message finds its way to you without anything getting in between. And then there is this. If you believe in the value of what is being created here, and you want to help us continue to build it, there is a donate link in the pinned comment and in the video description. If you have found healing in these messages, if something spoken here has helped you hold on when holding on was hard, and if you feel in your heart that you want to be a part of keeping this going, that link is there for you. This is not a requirement. It is not a condition of receiving anything that is shared here. Every word spoken in this space is for you freely and completely, regardless of anything else. But for those who feel led to give, your support helps us reach more people, create more content, and continue showing up for the ones who need it most. Whether you give or whether you simply show up and receive, we are genuinely and deeply grateful for your presence here. Now, back to you and the God who knew you before the world did. He saw the version of you that you have not yet become, and He loved that version just as fiercely as He loves the one you are right now. He saw the scars before the wounds existed. He saw the testimony before the trial began. He saw the crown before the battle was ever fought. And with all of that vision, all of that foreknowledge, all of that divine perspective, He still chose you. He still came for you. He still calls you by name, and He still stands today with a heart full of something that looks, in the most holy and beautiful way, like a father watching his child walk through fire and come out the other side still standing, still breathing, still believing. That is you. That has always been you. And Jesus has been proud of you far longer than you have known it. There is a theology that the wounded carry silently, one that was never preached from a pulpit, but was absorbed through years of pain and unanswered questions and long nights that stretched into longer mornings. It is a theology that whispers that suffering means something went wrong, that if you were truly chosen, truly favored, truly loved by a God who holds all power, then the road would be smoother, the doors would open faster, the losses would be fewer, and the silence from heaven would not stretch for so long that you begin to wonder if anyone is listening at all. That theology is a lie, and today Jesus is dismantling it piece by piece. Because the suffering was never wasted. Not a single moment of it. Not the grief that hollowed you out until you felt like a shell of who you used to be. Not the relationship that ended and took a piece of your identity with it. Not the dream that collapsed before it ever had a chance to fully breathe. Not the diagnosis, the betrayal, the financial ruin, the door that slammed in your face when you were absolutely certain it was supposed to open. None of it was wasted. Every single wound was a workshop. Every single valley was a classroom. Every single night of weeping was a sacred and intentional part of the making of something that heaven has been crafting in you since before time began. This is not a comfortable truth. It is not the kind of truth that feels good in the moment of pain. When you are in the middle of the fire, you do not want to hear that the fire is for your good. You want the fire to stop. And God understands that. He is not a distant deity who watches your suffering with clinical detachment and waits to see how the experiment turns out. He is a father who sits with you in the flame. Think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego thrown into a furnace so hot it killed the soldiers who threw them in. And yet when those who watched looked into the fire, they did not see 3 men burning. They saw 4 men walking, free, unbound, and the 4th, they said, looked like the Son of God. He was already in the fire before they arrived. He was already there, waiting for them in the place of their greatest suffering, not to rescue them from it immediately, but to walk with them through it completely. He has been walking with you through yours. And here is what the fire does that nothing else can do. It burns away what was never meant to stay. It separates the eternal from the temporary. It reveals what you are actually made of beneath the layers of performance and pretense and people-pleasing that the world trains us to build around ourselves. You did not know how strong you were until strength was the only option. You did not know how deep your faith went until everything on the surface was stripped away, and you discovered that something underneath refused to let go. You did not know the particular quality of your resilience until resilience was tested in a way that should have broken you and did not. The fire showed you something about yourself that comfort never could have revealed. The Apostle Paul understood this in a way that could only come from someone who had lived it. He wrote to the church in Rome and declared that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame. He was not writing theory, he was writing testimony. He had been shipwrecked and beaten and imprisoned and abandoned and left for dead. And he looked back at all of it, not with bitterness but with the understanding that every single piece of that suffering had been producing something in him that could not have been produced any other way. The version of Paul who could write with such authority and love and depth was not forged in comfort. He was forged in fire. And so were you. The version of you that is sitting here today, the one who has survived what you have survived and still retained the capacity to hope. The one who has been hurt in ways that could have permanently closed your heart, and yet somehow your heart is still open. The one who has walked through seasons so dark you could not see your own hand in front of your face, and yet you kept walking. That version of you is not an accident. That version of you is a masterpiece in progress. That version of you is what years of divine craftsmanship looks like when it has been willing to go through the process that most people are not willing to endure. Jesus does not look at your scars the way the world looks at them. The world looks at scars as evidence of damage, as proof that something went wrong, as marks that diminish value. But Jesus looks at scars as evidence of survival. He looks at them the way he looks at his own. When he appeared to his disciples after the resurrection, he did not hide what he had been through. He showed them his hands. He showed them his side. The wounds were not erased in the resurrection. They were transformed. They became the very proof that he had conquered what tried to destroy him. And your wounds, the ones you have tried to hide, the ones you carry in silence, the ones that still ache in certain seasons and certain silences, those wounds are not your defeat. They are your proof that you went through something real and came out the other side still standing, still breathing, still believing. There is something else that needs to be said about the suffering, something that touches the part of the story that is often the hardest to hold. Sometimes the suffering came not from the world, not from circumstance, but from the people who were supposed to love you best. A parent who was absent or harsh or careless with the tender places of your forming heart. A friend who turned their back in the moment you needed them most. A community that should have been a shelter and became instead a source of wounding. A church that preached love and practiced judgment. Those betrayals cut differently than any other kind of pain, because they attacked not just your circumstances but your sense of being worth loving at all. And Jesus holds that pain with particular tenderness, because he knows what it is to be betrayed by someone close. He knows what it is to be abandoned in the hour of greatest need. He knows what it is to look out from a place of agony and find that the ones who said they would stay have scattered. He did not avoid that experience. He walked through it, fully, humanly, with real tears and real grief, and a real heart that broke under the weight of what was done to it. And because he walked through it, he can sit with you in yours, not as someone who offers theoretical comfort from a distance, but as someone who has felt what betrayal costs and knows the specific grace that is needed to survive it and to eventually, in his time and by his power, be healed of it. Your healing is not far off. Your healing has already begun, even if you cannot see it yet, even if the evidence is still mostly hidden beneath the surface. The fact that you are here, that you opened your heart enough to receive these words, that something in you is still reaching for truth and love and the voice of the one who made you, that is healing in motion. That is the seed of restoration, already planted and already growing in the soil of your surrender. Nothing you have been through has been invisible to him. Not the thing that happened when you were young and vulnerable and had no language for what it was doing to you. Not the thing you have never told anyone because you are not sure they would understand or believe you. Not the slow, grinding grief of watching something you loved disappear piece by piece. He saw it all. He was there for all of it. And he has been doing something with all of it that your eyes have not yet been able to see, but that your heart, on its best days, has been able to feel. A quiet, steady, patient, eternal work of turning your pain into purpose and your wounds into weapons of healing for others who are walking the same road you once walked alone. The suffering was never the end of your story. It was always the making of it. There is a kind of faithfulness that nobody writes songs about. It does not look heroic from the outside. It does not come with a dramatic moment of triumph or a crowd of witnesses cheering you forward. It is quiet and unglamorous and deeply costly, and it happens in the spaces between the big moments. In the ordinary days when nothing seems to be changing and the promise still feels impossibly far away, and every logical reason to stop is louder than the one quiet whisper telling you to hold on. That is the faithfulness Jesus is celebrating over your life today. Not the faith that moved mountains in a single spectacular moment, but the faith that got up every morning and chose to keep believing even when the mountain had not moved an inch. You stayed, and that matters more than you know. Think about what staying actually cost you. It cost you the relief of giving up. And that is not a small thing, because giving up would have been so much easier. Walking away would have silenced the tension. Letting go of the promise would have ended the ache of waiting for something that had not yet arrived. When you release a hope, you stop being disappointed by it. When you stop believing in a dream, it can no longer keep you awake at night. There is a kind of peace that comes with surrender. A false peace, a hollow peace, but a peace nonetheless. And you could have chosen it at any point along the way. You could have put down the weight of the calling and walked into something smaller and simpler and less demanding, and no one would have blamed you. Most people around you probably would not have even noticed. But you did not put it down. You kept carrying it. Day after day, season after season, through the periods of spiritual dryness, when prayer felt like speaking into an empty room, through the moments of doubt that made you question everything you thought you knew, through the nights of wrestling and the mornings of exhaustion and the long stretches of time when heaven seemed silent and the promises of God seemed written for someone else's life. You kept carrying it, and Jesus sees that. He has seen every step of it. And today, he is not just acknowledging your faithfulness, he is honoring it. Because what you demonstrated in the fire was not just endurance, it was trust, deep, costly, undeniable trust. The kind of trust that does not require a visible outcome before it commits. The kind of trust that says, even if the answer does not come in the way I expect, even if the timeline does not match what I prayed for, even if I cannot trace the hand of God in this season, I will still believe that his hand is there. That is not a small faith. That is a faith that has been refined by everything that tried to destroy it. And it is exactly the kind of faith that moves the heart of God. There is a story in the book of Ruth that captures this beautifully. Ruth was a woman who had every reason to walk away. Her husband was gone. Her homeland was behind her. Her mother-in-law, Naomi, who was also broken by grief, even told her to go back to her own people and her own gods. And yet Ruth looked at Naomi and made a declaration that has echoed through the ages. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. She chose faithfulness when faithfulness was the hardest possible choice. She chose to stay in the story when leaving would have been completely understandable. And because she stayed, because she kept walking forward in loyalty and love and quiet trust, the entire trajectory of her life was transformed. She went from a widow in a foreign land to a woman of great honor. She went from gleaning in the fields to sitting at the table of her kinsman Redeemer. She became part of the lineage through which the Messiah himself would one day come into the world. Your faithfulness carries that same weight. The choice you made to stay in your faith, to stay in your calling, to stay in your trust even when everything around you was falling apart. That choice is not a footnote in your story. It is a turning point. It is the moment that heaven marked and said, "Watch what I do next because of what this one chose." And before we go any further, we want to pause and say something to you directly, from this community to you. If you have been walking this journey with us for any length of time, if these messages have been a companion to you in the quiet moments and the difficult seasons, then you are not just a viewer to us. You are part of something we genuinely care about and are deeply grateful for. If today's message has stirred something in your heart, we would love for you to like this video right now. That simple act helps more people in their own moments of need find their way to these words. And if you know someone who is struggling to hold on right now, someone who is right at the edge of letting go of their faith or their calling or their hope, please share this with them today. You might not know exactly what they are carrying, but God does, and He may be using your share as the very lifeline they need in this moment. Do not overthink it. Just send it. Let Him handle the rest. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, this is your moment. Click that button now so that you never miss a message that was prepared specifically for seasons like the one you may be walking through right now. Every new word, every new declaration, every new reminder of who you are and who He is will come directly to you, and we want you to have every single one. And then there is something else we want to mention, gently and honestly, because it comes from a real place. This channel exists because of a deep conviction that people need to hear they are chosen, loved, and seen by God. Creating this content takes time, heart, and resources. If you have found genuine value here, if something spoken in this space has helped you hold on when holding on felt impossible, and if you feel in your heart a desire to help us continue reaching more people with this message, there is a donate link in the pinned comment below and in the video description. If you believe in what is being built here and you want to be a part of sustaining it, that link is there for you. This is not a requirement. It is not a condition of anything. And it is not something you should ever feel pressured about. Every person who shows up here is equally welcomed and equally loved whether they give or not. But for those who feel led, your support makes a genuine difference. And we are grateful for every person who chooses to partner with us in keeping this going. Now, back to you and the faithfulness that Jesus is honoring today. Because there is something else that needs to be said about what staying in the fire produced in you. It produced a compassion that cannot be manufactured. You know what it feels like to be in the valley, which means you can sit with others in their valley without flinching, without offering easy answers, without rushing them toward a resolution they are not ready for. You know what it feels like to wait on God in the dark, which means you can hold the hand of someone else who is waiting and say with genuine authority, "I know this is hard, and I know He is still here." That is not something you learned in a classroom. That is something you earned in the wilderness, and it makes you dangerous to the kingdom of darkness and essential to the kingdom of light. The people around you need the version of you that the fire made. They do not need a polished, untested version who has only ever read about struggle from a safe distance. They need someone who has been through it and come out the other side with their faith, not just intact but deepened, not just surviving but anchored. That person is you. That is exactly who Jesus has been fashioning through every season you wanted to escape. You stayed, and because you stayed, you became. And because you became, others will be helped. And because others will be helped, the name of Jesus will be lifted higher than it could have been if you had walked away. Your faithfulness was never just about you. It was always about the ripple effect of one soul who chose to trust God in the dark and let that trust become a light for everyone around them. That is who you are. That is what you chose, and Jesus is so proud of you for it. There is a battle that has been fought over your life that most people around you have never seen. It did not take place in any visible arena. There were no witnesses to most of it, no audience to cheer you forward, no one to hand you water between rounds or wrap your wounds when the fight was over. It happened in the interior spaces of your life, in the privacy of your mind at 2 a.m, in the silence of rooms where you sat alone, with the full weight of something that had no name and no easy resolution. It happened in the spiritual atmosphere surrounding your days, in the unseen resistance that made simple things feel impossibly heavy, in the strange and relentless opposition that seemed to rise up every time you were on the verge of a breakthrough. That battle was real. Every part of it was real. And Jesus is acknowledging it today with a specificity and a tenderness that should reach into the deepest place of your exhaustion and begin to bring rest. Because one of the most isolating parts of spiritual warfare is that it is largely invisible. When you are fighting on a physical battlefield, the wounds are visible, the enemy has a face, the struggle can be pointed to and named and understood by those around you. But when the battle is spiritual, when the opposition is coming from a realm that most people around you do not have eyes to see, the experience can feel profoundly lonely. You try to explain what you are carrying, and the words come out inadequate. You try to describe the heaviness, and people offer practical solutions to what is not a practical problem. You try to name the resistance, and it sounds, even to your own ears, like something you should simply be able to think your way out of. And so you stop trying to explain it. You carry it alone. You fight in silence, and the silence itself becomes part of the weight. But Jesus has seen every round of that fight. He has not been a distant observer consulting reports from angels about how you are doing. He has been present in the battle itself, closer to you than the air you breathe, more aware of every movement of the enemy against your life than even you have been. And what he wants you to know today is that the opposition you have faced has not been random. It has been targeted. The reason the warfare against your life has been so persistent, so relentless, so specifically designed to attack the exact areas where your purpose lives is because the enemy knows what you carry. He has always known. He knew before you did. And a targeted enemy is evidence of a significant calling. Think about that for a moment. The enemy does not waste sophisticated warfare on lives that pose no threat to his kingdom. He does not deploy his most strategic attacks against people who will never affect anything of eternal consequence. The intensity of the battle against your life is, in a twisted way, a testimony to the magnitude of what God placed inside you. The more fiercely darkness has come against you, the more clearly it reveals that there is a light in you that terrifies it. You do not fight principalities and powers because you are ordinary. You fight them because you are dangerous to everything they are trying to build in this world. The Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus and pulled back the curtain on the nature of this battle with words that still carry the force of revelation today. He declared that the struggle is not against flesh and blood, but on rulers, against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. He was not speaking in metaphor. He was naming a reality that every truly chosen soul eventually comes to understand through lived experience. The reason some battles cannot be won with logic or willpower or human strategy alone is because they are not human battles. They require divine armor, divine authority, and a divine understanding of who you are and what you carry. And here is what the enemy has been most afraid of you discovering. He has been most afraid of you understanding your own authority, because a chosen one who does not know their authority is manageable. A chosen one who lives in confusion about their identity can be kept small, kept distracted, kept circling the same territory without ever advancing. But a chosen one who wakes up to the truth of who they are in Christ, who begins to understand that greater is He who is in them than he who is in the world, who starts to walk in the knowledge that no weapon formed against them shall prosper. That chosen one becomes something the kingdom of darkness cannot contain. That awakening is what has been happening in you. It has not always felt like awakening. Sometimes it has felt like unraveling. Sometimes the process of coming into truth has felt more like confusion than clarity, more like loss than gain, because the things that had to be dismantled to make room for the real were things you had built your sense of safety around. Old identities had to be loosened. Old agreements with the enemy's lies about who you are had to be broken. Old ways of coping that kept you functional but kept you small had to be released. And that process, that holy and necessary undoing, is painful in ways that are difficult to articulate. But it is not destruction. It is renovation. It is God clearing the ground so that what He builds next has a foundation that can actually hold the weight of the glory He intends to place upon your life. There were moments in that warfare when the enemy came close. There were seasons when the pressure was so great that you could feel yourself bending under the weight of it. There were nights when the lies were so loud and so persuasive that you could barely hear the truth beneath them. Lies that said you were too broken to be used. Lies that said the damage was too deep to be healed. Lies that said the people who left were right to leave, that the doors that closed were closed for good reason, that the silence from heaven was not patience but rejection. Those lies were crafted specifically for you, designed to fit the exact shape of your deepest fears and insecurities, delivered through the voices and circumstances most likely to make you receive them as truth. And yet you are here, which means the lies did not win, which means that even in the moments when you could not fully see through them, something in you held on to something true. Some anchor held. Some thread of connection to the voice of God remained unbroken even when everything else felt like it was fraying. That is not your strength. That is His faithfulness working through your willingness. That is the grace of a God who promised that He, who began a good work in you, would carry it through to completion, and who meant every word of that promise even in the seasons when you had forgotten He said it. The warfare you have endured has also done something to your discernment that cannot be replicated by any other means. You have learned to recognize the voice of the enemy because you have heard it up close. You have learned to identify the patterns of his strategy because you have lived through them. You have developed a spiritual sensitivity that allows you to perceive things in the atmosphere around people and situations that others simply walk past without noticing. That gift did not come from a comfortable life. It came from a fought life, from years of navigating invisible terrain and learning, slowly and sometimes painfully, to tell the difference between what is from God and what is from the one who comes only to steal and kill and destroy. That discernment is part of your weapon now. The very sensitivity that made you a target in the spiritual realm is also what makes you a threat to darkness and a resource to light. You can see what others cannot yet see. You can feel what others are not yet tuned in enough to feel. You can pray with a specificity and an authority that comes only from someone who has been in the battle long enough to know exactly what they are praying against. Jesus has not been absent from your warfare. He has been your rear guard and your shield, and the lifter of your head in every moment when the battle was at its most fierce. And today, he looks at every wound you carry from that invisible fight, and he says, "I saw it all. I was there for all of it. And you fought well, beloved. You fought so well." There is a moment in the life of every chosen soul when something shifts. It does not always announce itself with thunder or fire or a dramatic visitation. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is a decision made in the dark that no one else witnesses. Sometimes it is a surrender whispered in a car on the side of the road, or a prayer offered through tears in a bathroom at 3 in the morning, or a simple and exhausted yes spoken into a silence that felt empty but was anything but. Those moments, those quiet, unseen, unglamorous moments of obedience and surrender and trust, they do not disappear into the atmosphere the way it sometimes feels like they do. They rise, they ascend, and they land on the altar of heaven with a weight and a fragrance that moves the heart of God in ways that sermons and performances and religious spectacle never could. Your obedience has been moving heaven, and today Jesus wants you to know it. This is not a small statement. This is not a comforting platitude offered to make you feel better about a life that seems to be going nowhere. This is a spiritual reality rooted in the unchanging nature of a God who responds to faith with action, who honors surrender with breakthrough, who sees what is done in secret and rewards it openly. Every time you chose obedience when disobedience would have been easier. Every time you chose trust when doubt was louder. Every time you chose to give when you had barely enough, to forgive when the wound was still fresh, to speak when silence would have been safer. To stay when leaving felt like the only sane option. You were not merely making a human decision. You were releasing something into the spiritual atmosphere that had divine consequences. Think about the moments of quiet obedience that felt insignificant at the time. The conversation you had with someone that you almost did not have because you were tired and distracted, but something nudged you and you stopped and you listened and you said the thing that needed to be said. You may never know this side of eternity what that conversation meant to the person who received it. Think about the prayer you prayed over someone or something when you had no evidence that it was making any difference at all, when the circumstances looked unchanged and your own faith felt thin as paper, but you prayed anyway because you had committed to trust even without proof. That prayer was heard. That prayer was recorded. That prayer joined a chorus of intercession that was shifting things in the invisible realm, long before the visible realm showed any evidence of it. Think about the times you chose integrity when compromise would have gone unnoticed. The times you told the truth when a lie would have been convenient. The times you honored a commitment when breaking it would have cost you nothing in terms of public reputation. Those choices, those small, private, daily choices to align your life with the character of God, even when no one was watching, they are the substance of a life that heaven counts as faithful. They are the bricks of a testimony that is being built one quiet act of obedience at a time. The prophet Elijah understood something about the way God moves in the hidden places. After his greatest public victory on Mount Carmel, he found himself alone in the wilderness, exhausted and afraid, and asking God to take his life. And God did not respond with a lecture or a rebuke or a reminder of the great things he had just done through him. He responded with bread and water and rest. He responded with provision for the physical need before he addressed the spiritual one. And then, when Elijah was strengthened and had traveled to the mountain of God, the Lord passed by. And there was a great wind that tore the mountains apart. And there was an earthquake, and there was fire. But the Lord was not in the wind, and the Lord was not in the earthquake, and the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. It was in the whisper that God spoke. It was in the small, still, quiet voice that the word of direction and restoration and purpose came. That is where God has been speaking to you. Not always in the dramatic, not always in the spectacular, but in the gentle whisper that comes in the quiet moments when your heart is still enough to hear it. And every time you leaned in to hear that whisper, every time you chose the quiet place of communion over the noise of distraction, every time you said yes to the still small voice instead of the loud competing voices of the world, that yes was an act of obedience that moved something in heaven. Your obedience has also shifted the atmosphere around your life in ways that you may only now be beginning to perceive. There are doors that are unlocking because of the faithfulness you have walked in. There are connections being prepared, resources being positioned, divine appointments being arranged, all as a direct response to the yes you have been living in the hidden places. God is not slow in fulfilling his promises, though it may sometimes appear that way from a human perspective. He is precise. He is strategic. He is working all things together, including the things that look like delays and detours and disappointments, into a pattern that is moving toward a specific and glorious outcome that he has had in mind for your life since before the foundation of the world. Now, right here in the middle of this message, we want to take a moment to speak to you about something that comes from a genuine place of care. This channel exists because we believe that people like you, the ones who are walking faithfully in the hidden places, the ones who are fighting battles that no one else can see, deserve a space where they are seen and spoken to with honesty and love. If these messages have been part of your journey, if they have met you in the quiet moments and reminded you of who you are, we would love for you to like this video today. Your like is a simple but meaningful way of saying that this content matters, and it helps us reach more people who are walking their own unseen battles and need to hear that they are not alone. If someone comes to mind as you listen, someone who is in a season of questioning their purpose or struggling to believe that their obedience is making any difference at all, please share this with them now. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The fact that they came to mind is not coincidence. That is the gentle nudge of the same Spirit who has been guiding your steps, and your willingness to share might be the very thing that turns their day around. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, we warmly invite you to do that now. We show up consistently to create content that speaks to the deeper places of the chosen one journey, and we want every message to find its way to you without anything getting lost in between. And for those who feel in their heart a desire to partner with what is being built here, there is a donate link in the pinned comment and in the video description. If these messages have added value to your life and you want to help us continue creating and reaching more people, that link is there for you. We want to say clearly and sincerely that this is never a requirement. Every word spoken here is offered freely and completely, and your presence alone is a gift we do not take for granted. But for those who feel genuinely led to give, your support helps us keep showing up for the ones who need it most. Whether you give financially or simply give your presence and your open heart, We are grateful beyond words. Now back to the truth that heaven has been responding to your yes. Because there is something else your obedience has released that needs to be named. It has released anointing. The anointing on your life has been deepening through every act of surrender, through every moment you laid down your own agenda and picked up the purposes of God instead. Anointing is not something that is downloaded in a single moment and then stored without change. It grows, it deepens, it expands in direct proportion to the faithfulness and the surrender of the one who carries it. And the anointing that is on your life right now is greater than it has ever been. Not because you are more talented or more gifted than before, but because you have been more yielded, more broken open, more willing to be used in the way He chooses rather than the way you would have designed. That anointing is about to become visible in ways it has not been before. The season of hidden faithfulness is giving way to a season of open fruitfulness. What has been growing in the dark is preparing to break through into the light. And when it does, when the world around you begins to see what God has been cultivating in the secret place, you will know beyond any shadow of doubt that it was not your doing. It was His response to your obedience. It was heaven answering the yes you whispered. In the quiet when no one else was listening, He was always listening. He has always been listening. And what He heard from you has moved Him to act on your behalf in ways that are about to take your breath away. There was a moment, you know the one. It did not happen in public, and it did not make it into any testimony you have ever shared out loud, because the words for it are difficult to find, and the vulnerability required to speak it is more than most moments of honesty demand. But it happened. There was a moment, perhaps more than one, perhaps a season that stretched across weeks or months or even years, when you came so close to putting it all down that you could feel the relief of it in advance. Not just the dream, not just the calling, not just the ministry or the mission or the particular assignment that God had placed in your hands. You came close to putting down the crown itself, the identity, the chosen one, the whole weight of being someone God had marked for a purpose you could not always see and could not always carry and could not always explain to the people around you who seemed to be living their lives with so much less friction and so much more ease. You came close to saying, I am done with this. I am done with the warfare and the waiting and the weight of a calling that asks more of me than I feel I have left to give. I am done with believing for the things that have not come. I am done with standing in faith for promises that have not yet arrived. I am done with being the one who holds on while everyone around me seems to move forward unencumbered. I am done. And something stopped you. You may not even be fully sure what it was. It was not always a dramatic encounter. It was not always a burning bush or an audible voice or a vision in the night. Sometimes it was the smallest thing. A song that came on at the exact moment your hand was on the door. A scripture that surfaced in your mind from somewhere you could not consciously trace. A phone call from someone who had no idea what you were going through, but said the exact thing that reached through the darkness and touched the place that was closest to breaking. A sunrise that hit the sky in a color so itchingly beautiful that for just a moment the world cracked open and something eternal leaked through and reminded you that there is a God and He is not finished, and neither are you. Those moments were not accidents. They were divine interventions. They were the hand of God reaching into the natural world and leaving a fingerprint in the exact place where you were about to let go. He saw how close you were to the edge. He always does. And He did not respond with disappointment or frustration or a lecture about the weakness of your faith. He responded with presence, with a mercy so precise and so personal that it could only have come from a God who knew exactly where you were and exactly what you needed in that moment. The crown you almost threw down was never just yours to carry. It was never just about your comfort or your satisfaction or your ability to manage the demands of the calling. That crown carries the weight of the people who are attached to your yes. There are souls connected to your obedience that you have not yet met. There are lives that are waiting for the version of you that makes it through this season fully, not the version that exits early and leaves the assignment unfinished. There are children and grandchildren, spiritual and perhaps biological, whose trajectories depend in part on whether you held on long enough to complete what God began in you. The enemy knows this. That is precisely why he works so hard to convince you that laying down the crown is a reasonable, even merciful option. He wants you to believe that you are sparing yourself unnecessary suffering, when the truth is that you would be abandoning a post that no one else was designed to fill. But here is what needs to be said with great care and great love. The fact that you almost let go does not disqualify you. It does not make you less chosen, or less anointed, or less worthy of the calling. It makes you human. It makes you honest. It makes you someone who has not been pretending that the journey is easy when it is not. Someone who has not been performing strength while dying on the inside. Someone who has been in genuine and costly relationship with a calling that demands everything and sometimes feels like it gives nothing back, at least not in the ways the world considers valuable. That honesty, that willingness to be broken open rather than artificially composed, is actually part of what makes you useful to God. He does not need your performance. He needs your authenticity. And the moments when you were closest to breaking were often the moments when you were most real, most honest, most genuinely dependent on Him rather than on your own ability to manage things. Think of Elijah again, who sat under the broom tree and asked God to take his life. Think of Jeremiah, who cursed the day of his birth and declared that he was done speaking the word of the Lord, because it had brought him nothing but reproach and derision. Think of Moses, who told God in a moment of exhausted frustration that if this was how things were going to continue, he would rather die than go on leading a people who would not listen. These were not failures of faith. They were honest encounters with the full weight of a divine assignment carried in a human frame. And in every single case, God did not reject the honesty. He met it. He responded to it. He provided what was needed, and then He sent them back, not because they had recovered their strength perfectly, but because His purpose for them was not dependent on their constant composure. It was dependent on His constant faithfulness. His faithfulness is what kept the crown on your head when your own hands were too tired to hold it there. His faithfulness is what stood guard over your calling in the seasons when you had lost sight of it entirely. His faithfulness is what made sure that every exit you almost took was closed before you could walk through it, not to trap you, not to punish you, but to protect you from the grief of walking away from the very thing that your soul was made to carry. And now you are still here. The crown is still on your head. Not because you are stronger than the moments that tried to break you, but because something greater than your strength was holding it in place. And Jesus looks at that today, at the crown that stayed on through everything that tried to dislodge it. And He says, with the full weight of divine love and pride, you have no idea what it meant that you did not give up. You have no idea what was preserved, what was protected, what was kept alive in the kingdom because you held on. But one day you will see it clearly. One day the full picture will be visible, and you will understand that every moment of holding on was not stubbornness or denial, or an inability to accept reality. It was faithfulness. Holy, costly, kingdom-shifting faithfulness. There is something else that needs to be named about the moments you almost walked away. In many of those moments, what you were really feeling was not a desire to abandon God, but a desperate need for Him to show up differently. You were not walking away from faith. You were walking away from a version of the journey that had become unbearable, hoping that somewhere in the act of letting go you might finally find the relief and the renewal that the holding on had not yet produced. That is not rebellion. That is the cry of a heart that has been carrying something heavy for a long time and is asking, not without love, but with love and desperation intertwined, God, I need you to meet me here. I need you to do something. I cannot do this as my own strength anymore. And He heard that cry every single time. He heard it when it was articulate, and He heard it when it was nothing more than a groan. He heard it in the night, and He heard it in the middle of ordinary Tuesday afternoons, when the weight descended without warning, and there were no words for it at all. He heard it, and He answered it. Perhaps not always in the way you asked, but always in the way that served the deepest need of your soul and the highest purpose of your calling. You did not throw the crown down. It is still there, and Jesus is proud of you for every single moment that it stayed. There is something being built over your life right now that your natural eyes have not yet fully seen. It has been under construction for longer than you realize, assembled in the invisible realm with a precision and a care that surpasses anything human hands could design or human minds could engineer. While you were walking through the wilderness, while you were enduring the silence, while you were fighting battles in the dark and holding on by threads you were not always sure would hold, heaven was not idle. Heaven was building. And what is being built for you? What is being prepared and positioned and made ready for the season you are now entering is something so far beyond what you have been asking for that when it arrives, the only response your heart will have is worship. This is not wishful thinking. This is not a motivational declaration designed to make you feel good in the moment. This is a spiritual reality rooted in the unchanging word of a God who declared through the prophet Isaiah that no eye has seen, and no ear has heard, and no human mind has conceived the things that God has prepared for those who love Him. That scripture is not a poetic exaggeration. It is a precise and literal statement about the nature of divine reward. What God prepares for His faithful ones is categorically beyond the capacity of human imagination to anticipate. You cannot dream big enough to contain what He has been building. You cannot pray specifically enough to fully capture the dimensions of what He has been arranging on your behalf. Think about the seeds that have been planted through your faithfulness. Every act of obedience was a seed. Every tear sown in the night was a seed. Every prayer offered in the wilderness was a seed. Every moment of surrender, every choice to trust when trusting was the hardest possible option, every step of faith taken on a road that had no visible destination, all of it was seed going into ground that God had already prepared to receive it. And seeds, when they are planted in divine soil and watered by the faithfulness of God, do not produce in proportion to how small they looked when they went in. They produce in proportion to the nature of the God who causes the growth. You have been sowing into soil you could not always see. You have been planting in seasons that felt like winter, when the ground looked frozen and barren and incapable of producing anything at all. But God is not limited by the appearance of seasons. He is the God who calls things that are not as though they are. He is the God who saw a garden in the desert, and a river in the wilderness, and a road in the wasteland, and declared them into existence before any natural evidence supported thee. declaration. And He has been declaring things over your life in the seasons when everything around you contradicted what He was saying. Those declarations are about to become visible. The harvest of everything you have sown is preparing to break through the surface. And when it comes, it will come in a way that is unmistakably divine, in a way that you cannot attribute to your own cleverness or timing or strategy, because the preparation has been entirely His, and the fruit that comes from it will bear His fingerprints so clearly that even the people who doubted you will have to acknowledge that something supernatural has happened in your life. What is being built over you includes restoration. Not just recovery of what was lost, but restoration in the biblical sense, the sense that Job understood after the wilderness season of his life, when God gave him twice what he had before. Restoration that compensates for the years. Restoration that accounts for the interest accumulated during the waiting. Restoration that does not merely return you to where you were before the losses, but positions you at a higher elevation, with a greater perspective, with a deeper capacity, with a wider influence than you could have accessed if the losses had happened at all. The losses were not the enemy winning. The losses were the enemy overplaying his hand and triggering a divine response of restoration that would ultimately take you further than you would have gone without them. What is being built over you also includes divine connections. The people who are meant to walk into your next season are being positioned even now. There are relationships being prepared that will carry the marks of divine appointment, that will feel from the very first moment like a recognition rather than an introduction, as though your souls have known each other in the purposes of God long before your natural lives intersected. There are mentors and collaborators and friends and partners in purpose who are moving toward you in this season, drawn by the same spirit that is moving in you, connected to you by a thread of divine design that has been woven into both of your stories from the beginning. What is being built over you includes open doors. Doors that were closed for seasons that felt inexplicably long are being prepared to swing wide in a timing that only God could orchestrate. And when they open, they will open in a way that no one can shut, because what God opens in His time and for His purposes is not subject to the opposition of any human hand or any spiritual force that has been trying to keep you contained. The same God who brought Israel out of Egypt and through the Red Sea and through the wilderness and into the promised land is the God who is leading you across the threshold of your own promised season. And the walls that have stood between you and the fullness of your calling are subject to the same power that brought the walls of Jericho down, but through divine instruction, faithfully followed. Here, in the middle of this unveiling, we want to speak to you for just a moment from our hearts. This channel exists because we believe deeply that messages like this one need to reach as many people as possible. People who are standing at the threshold of their breakthrough and need someone to say, "Keep going. What is coming is worth everything you have been through." If this message has stirred something in you today, if it has touched a place of hope that had grown quiet, we would love for you to like this video right now. That small action carries more reach than you might realize, and it helps us place these words in front of more people who are waiting to hear them. If someone in your life is standing at the edge of their breakthrough but cannot yet see it, please share this video with them today. You may not know the full weight of what they are carrying, but God does, and He may be using your share as the bridge between their wilderness and their promised land. Do not let the moment pass. Share it now. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, we invite you warmly to do so. We are committed to showing up consistently with words that speak to the deeper places of the journey, and we want every new message to find its way to you without you having to search for it. Click subscribe and stay connected to God is releasing through this space. And for those who feel in their heart a genuine desire to partner with what is being built here, we want you to know that there is a donate link in the pinned comment below and in the video description. If these messages have been a source of strength and encouragement on your journey, and if you feel led to help us continue reaching more people with this word, that link is there for you. We say this with complete sincerity and without any pressure whatsoever. Every person who listens here is equally loved and equally welcomed, and nothing shared in this space is conditional on anything you give. But for those who feel genuinely moved to support this work, we receive that with deep gratitude, and we want you to know that your generosity helps us keep showing up for the ones who need it most. Whether you give through donation or simply give your open and receptive heart, we are grateful for you. Now back to what heaven has been building over your life. Because there is one more dimension of it that needs to be named before this section closes. What is being built over you is a platform for your testimony. The story of what God has done in your life. The full story. The honest one that includes the darkness and the doubt, and the almost giving up, and the miraculous holding on. That story is going to become a lifeline for people who are in the middle of their own wilderness and cannot yet see their way through. Your testimony is not just your personal property. It is a weapon of the kingdom, a tool of deliverance, a word of hope that has the power to break chains and open eyes and restore faith in hearts that have grown cold with disappointment. God has been building all of this while you were in the waiting, while you were in the wondering, while you were in the silent seasons that felt like nothing was happening. Everything was happening. Heaven was busy on your behalf, and what is coming is worth every single moment of what you have been through to get here. The winter is ending. You may not feel it yet in the full warmth of visible change. You may not see it yet in the dramatic reversal of every circumstance that has been pressing against you. But in the spirit, in the realm where all things begin before they manifest in the natural, the season is shifting. The long cold that has held certain areas of your life in a kind of suspended stillness. That heaviness that settled over your dreams and your relationships and your sense of divine momentum. It is breaking. Not slowly, not incrementally, not in the gradual way that barely registers until years have passed. It is breaking with the authority of a God who looked at the calendar of your life and declared that the appointed time has come. There is a concept woven through the scriptures that does not translate perfectly into modern language, but carries a weight that every chosen soul eventually comes to understand through experience. It is the concept of appointed time. Not just time in the general sense, not just the idea that eventually things will get better because time heals all wounds, but the specific, divine, intentional appointment of a moment that God marked before the foundation of the world and has been moving all of history toward with a sovereign precision that leaves no room for accident or chance. Your season is an appointed one. It was marked before you were born. It was written into the blueprint before you took your first breath. And the fact you are here, still standing, still breathing, still believing, means that you have arrived at the threshold of the moment that was always meant for you. Think about the story of Joseph. He was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in a prison for years that stretched beyond any reasonable human expectation of divine intervention. And then, In what must have felt from a natural perspective like a completely sudden and inexplicable turn, everything changed. Not gradually, not after a long period of visible preparation. In a single day, Joseph went from the prison to the palace. In a single conversation, the entire trajectory of his life was reversed. In a single divine appointment with Pharaoh, the years of suffering were revealed to have been preparation for a purpose so significant that it would save not just one nation but many, including the very brothers who had thrown him into the pit in the first place. The timing looked sudden from the outside, but from God's perspective, it was exactly on schedule, not a day early and not a day late. Your Joseph moment is not a metaphor. It is a promise. The years you have spent in the pit, in the prison, in the places of constraint and confusion and apparent abandonment, they have been doing in you exactly what they did in Joseph. They have been developing a character capable of carrying the weight of what God is about to place in your hands. They have been producing a wisdom that cannot be acquired in comfort, a compassion that cannot be manufactured in ease, a spiritual depth that can only be forged in the furnace of genuine suffering and genuine faith held simultaneously. You have been being prepared for a palace you could not have entered without first walking through the prison. And the door of the prison is opening. The restriction coming into your life is not going to tiptoe in. It is not going to arrive apologetically, as though it is not quite sure it has the right address. It is going to come with the full force and authority of a God who has been building toward this moment for a long time and is releasing it now with intention and joy. There are areas of your life that have been dry for so long that you have almost made peace with the dryness, almost accepted it as your permanent geography. But God is sending rain to those places. Not a gentle drizzle that barely disturbs the surface. Rain that soaks deep into the ground and reaches the roots of things that have been waiting underground, alive but dormant, holding on for the moisture that would finally give them permission to grow. Your relationships are entering a new season. The loneliness that has been a companion for longer than you wanted it to be is giving way to connection that is rooted in something real, something mutual, something ordained. The people coming into your life in this next season will not be there by accident, and they will not be there to take. They will be there to build alongside you, to sharpen you, to reflect back to you the truth of who you are in moments when you are tempted to forget it. They will be the kind of friendships and partnerships that the soul recognizes immediately, the kind that feel less like chance meetings and more like long-awaited arrivals. Your purpose is entering a new season of visibility and fruitfulness. The gifts that have been operating quietly, that have been blessing people in the background without much recognition or platform, are being given wider expression. The anointing that has been deepening through the hidden years is about to find the stage it was always meant to occupy, not for the sake of your pride or your platform, but for the sake of the people who are waiting on the other side of your obedience. People whose freedom and healing and restoration are tied to your willingness to step into the fullness of what you were made to be. Your faith is entering a new season of confirmation. The things you have been believing for in the quiet, the things you have prayed over in secret and held in your heart without the courage to speak aloud because the gap between the promise and the present reality seemed too wide to cross. Those things are beginning to move. God is releasing confirmations. He is sending signs, not to replace faith but to strengthen it, not to make belief unnecessary, but to reward it with the encouragement of visible evidence that He has been hearing, and He has been moving, and He has not forgotten a single word of what He promised you. Right here, in this moment of prophetic declaration over your life, we want to invite you to respond, not with silence, but with a declaration of your own. Type in the comments right now, "My season now." Those 3 words carry the weight of everything you have walked through and the faith of everything you are stepping into. They are your declaration that the waiting is over, that the winter has broken, that you are no longer standing at the edge of your appointed time looking in, but are stepping through the door that God has held open for you through every season of delay and silence and testing. My season now. Type it in the comments and let it be a stake driven into the ground of your story, a marker that says, "Here, at this moment, I chose to believe." Because that declaration is not just for the algorithm, and it is not just for the people who will read it in the comments. It is for you. It is a word spoken from your own mouth over your own life, and there is power in that. Proverbs tells us that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and today you are choosing life. You are choosing the season. You are choosing to believe that what God has promised is more real than what your circumstances have been telling you. Because the truth is, the circumstances were never the final word. They were always temporary arrangements in a story whose ending was already written by the one who authors and perfects your faith. And the ending he wrote for your story is not one of defeat or diminishment or quiet resignation to a life smaller than the one he designed for you. The ending he wrote is one of wholeness and purpose and overflow, and the kind of joy that does not depend on everything being perfect, because it is rooted in someone who is. You are walking into your season now, not eventually, not someday when you have it all together. Now, with the faith you have right now, with the healing you have experienced so far, with the wisdom you have accumulated, and the scars you carry, and the crown that stayed on through everything that tried to knock it off. You are walking in now, and every step forward is a step deeper into the appointed time that God designed for you before the world began. The winter is ending. The spring of your life is here, and everything that is about to bloom in you and around you and through you was worth every single day of the cold. You are not the same person who started this journey. That is not a small thing to say. It is perhaps one of the most significant truths that can be spoken over a life that has walked through everything you have walked through and arrived at this moment, still breathing, still believing, still reaching for the God who called you before the foundation of the world. You are not the same. The fire changed you. The wilderness changed you. The silence changed you. The warfare changed you. The almost giving up and the choosing to stay changed you. And the change that has happened in you is not the kind that diminishes. It is the kind that deepens. It is the kind that makes you more fully yourself, more fully His, more fully alive to the purpose that was always written into the fabric of your existence. Jesus looks at you today, at the full sum of everything you are and everything you have been through and everything you are becoming. And He does not see someone who barely made it. He sees someone who was forged. He sees someone whose faith has been tested in the places that matter and has come through not as a smaller version of itself, but as something more refined, more anchored, more unshakable than it was when the testing began. He sees the crown that stayed on. He sees the hands that kept reaching even when they were trembling. He sees the heart that kept loving even when it was broken. And He calls what He sees worthy. He calls what He sees chosen. He calls what He sees His own. And that word, worthy, is one the enemy has fought hardest to keep from landing in the deep places of your heart. Because a chosen one who knows they are worthy is unstoppable. A chosen one who has received the full weight of divine approval and is no longer dependent on the validation of the world or the applause of the crowd, or the permission of people who were never meant to define them. That chosen one walks in a freedom and a power that cannot be manufactured and cannot be contained. That is who you are becoming. That is who you already are in the eyes of the one whose opinion is the only one that carries eternal weight. Before we close this message together, we want to do something that feels right and true for this moment. We want to pray, not as a religious formality, not as a scripted conclusion to a piece of content, but as a genuine act of faith on your behalf, because you came here today for a reason, and the God who brought you here is not finished speaking to you yet. Father, we come before you right now on behalf of every soul that has heard these words today. Every person who has been carrying more than they should have to carry alone. Every heart that has been waiting in a season that has stretched longer than they thought they could endure. Every chosen one who has come so close to laying down their crown and chose instead, by your grace and your faithfulness, to keep it on. We thank you that you are proud of them today. We thank you that your pride in them is not contingent on their perfection, but is rooted in your own love, your own faithfulness, your own relentless pursuit of the ones you made and called and never let go of. We ask you now to let every word spoken in this message land in the deepest and most honest places of their hearts. Let it break through every wall the enemy has built. Let it dissolve every lie that has kept them from walking in the fullness of who you made them to be. And let them leave this moment knowing, with a certainty that surpasses understanding, that they are seen, they are loved, they are chosen, and you are proud of them. In the name of Jesus, who began this good work and will carry it through to completion. Amen. That prayer was for you. Receive it. Let it settle into the places that are still healing, and the places that are already whole, and the places that are somewhere in between. God heard it. He was already moving before the words were spoken, because he knew you would be here today, and he had already prepared what you needed to receive. Now, as we close, we want to say something simple and from the heart. If this message has meant something to you today, if it has reached a place that needed to be reached, we would love for you to like this video before you go. That simple act of clicking like helps these words travel further and reach more people who are in the middle of their own wilderness and need to hear that God is proud of them too. Please do not underestimate what your like can do for someone you will never meet. And if someone came to mind during this message, someone whose name surfaced in your heart while these words were being spoken, please share this video with them now. That is not coincidence. That is the Spirit of God using you as the instrument of someone else's breakthrough. Your share might be the most important thing you do today for someone who is running out of reasons to hold on. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, we warmly invite you to subscribe right now. We show up to create content for the chosen ones, for the ones walking the deeper and more costly road of faith, and we want every message we release to find its way to you without anything standing in between. And now we want to share something honestly and vulnerably, because you deserve that from us. This channel has had its monetization removed by YouTube. That means these videos are no longer generating any income through the platform. But we are still here. We are still creating. We are still showing up for you and for every person who needs to hear that they are chosen and loved and seen by God. Because this was never about income. This is ministry. This is calling. This is the assignment God placed on this channel. And we are not walking away from it, regardless of what the platform decides. But creating this content takes real time, real resources, and real commitment. And so for those who have been blessed by what is shared here, for those who feel in their heart a genuine desire to help keep this going, We want you to know that there is a donate link in the pinned comment below and in the video description. If these messages have been a lifeline for you, if something spoken here has helped you hold on in a season when holding on felt impossible, and if you feel led to partner with what God is doing through this channel, that link is there for you. We will never make this a condition of anything. Every word shared here is freely given and will continue to be freely given regardless of anything else. But for those who feel moved to give, your support is what makes it possible for us to keep showing up for the ones who need it most. We receive your generosity with deep gratitude and with the prayer that God multiplies back to you everything you sow into His kingdom. Through this channel, whether you give or whether you simply show up and receive, you are valued here, you are seen here, and you are always welcome here. Now, one final word before we close. Jesus said to you at the beginning of this message that He is proud of you. He meant it then, and He means it now. Not because you have arrived at perfection, not because the journey is finished or the warfare is over or the waiting has completely ended, but because you are His, because you have chosen Him imperfectly and beautifully and with everything you had, through every season that tried to talk you out of it, because the crown is still on your head, because the faith is still in your heart, because you are still here, still reaching, still becoming the fullness of everything He saw when He looked at you before the world began and said, "That one, that soul, mine." You are not like the rest. You were never meant to be. You were made for something that most people will never fully understand, and that is not a burden. It is the highest honor that exists. It is the mark of a life that was chosen before it was formed, loved before it was known, and called by a name that heaven has been speaking over you since before you had ears to hear it. Beloved, go forward now. Go forward in the knowledge that you are seen. Go forward in the truth that you are worthy. Go forward in the freedom of knowing that the one who made you is proud of you today, not someday, not when you finally get it right, but today, right now, exactly as you are, exactly where you are, in the middle of the becoming that He began and will faithfully complete. He is proud of you, and He always will be.